Super. Well, good morning, Kate. How are you today?
Hi, good. How are you, John?
I'm doing great. So glad that you're able to join me this morning and talk a little bit about your experiences with active participation. Would you, though, for the benefit of those who are watching and listening, tell us who you are, what your role is in your setting, and where you work?
Sure. My name's Kate Smith, and I am a middle school special education teacher at Portage North Middle in Portage, Michigan. And I serve as students with IEPs as well as students through the MTSS intervention system, specifically in reading.
You also serve on like a leadership team for these efforts as well, don't you, Kate?
Yes, we do. There's a building leadership team as well as a reading intervention team that I have the privilege of being a part of to look at data, review data, and help kind of get our kids moving in the right direction.
Super. Hey, when we were together the other day, you talked about Anita Archer's front and back or reference sheet on active participations, and you said, I always have it right here, and if I had 10 copies, it wouldn't be enough. Why is that? What's the importance of that sheet to you?
That sheet is like the gold sheet that you want to keep your hands on. I have it right on my board so that when I need to refer to it, try something different with my class, or just remember, this is what I need to do to keep my classroom running and the routines going and my kids engaged. I grab that. So I know every time I go to a training and somebody hands it to me, I'm like, yes, another copy. And I make sure it's with whatever book I might be looking at or referencing so that I don't forget exactly what I need to be using.
So thinking about, I mean, there's quite a few of those practices on the front and back of that sheet. Are there some that you find are real go-tos for your population and the teaching situations that you find yourself in?
Yeah, typically I use choral reading every single day. I do a lot of partner reads, whisper reads, and I do some closed reading as well.
Tell me a little bit about the use of the different types of reading techniques, the whisper versus the close and all.
Sure. So initially, when students are asked to read a passage, I know for myself and for most people, if they read it by themselves first, they can kind of work through some of the words, gather some meaning before they have to read it out loud to anybody. And so I use what's called whisper read. And the students are all reading at the same time to themselves. Mouths are moving, eyes are on the paper, and I'm walking around and I'll just gently put my hand on their shoulder, and then they elevate their voice just a little bit so that I can hear them and where they're at. But this gives the kids a chance to read by themselves, work through some of the words, and use some of their strategies that they need. And so I use that initially when we first read a text together, and then we chorally read. So they have that chance to work through some words by themselves, and then we come back as a group. I give them my signal, and then we read it as an entire group. No exceptions. Every kid needs to be involved, and I need to hear their voices, see their mouths moving, and we read it together. So those are two that I use daily. Close reading we'll also use, where I'll tell them fill in my blank. So we're reading, and they're following along with me. Their eyes are tracking, and then when I stop, they finish what I'm saying because they're paying attention. They're with me, and then that's their job when we do close reading.
I know that the population you work with, they've had a lot of years of lack of success in terms of their reading. And so how do you get them to comply? I could imagine a fair amount of avoidance early on with some of these kids with just doing what you're talking about.
Well, John, they have no choice in my class. So beginning of the year is super important to establish those routines, to introduce them to the different types of reading that we'll be doing, and then to let them know that this is what we do in this room. This is part of our culture. Everybody does it. And certainly middle school students, middle school struggling readers, they're going to want to bail if they can. But to kind of create that culture of safety and that expectation that you matter and we're all doing this. So get on board early, it'll be less painful.
You also mentioned the use of partners quite a bit. Is that an important thing to consider, especially at the middle school level?
Yeah, I think a lot of teachers actually shy away from using partners, especially when it comes to reading. But I find that partner reading in my reading intervention classes are so successful. It is important to have certainly the right seating arrangement and partnerships. And once I find those, I rarely change seats. But students really, we've practiced the words together, we've read some words, or they're reading with a partner and they want to perform well for their peers. If I'm asking them to just read to me, they don't care if they make a mistake, but they're really going to make a concerted effort to focus on those words and using those strategies to break them down because they want to sound like, hey, I've got this. I know how to read these words with their peers. And so I've actually found that partnerships work really beautifully, and students start to help each other out and go, wait, look back at that word. And it's a comfortable, safe environment that has been established. And that's just the norm in my classroom.
Yeah, good. I know also one of your roles, Kate, is co-teaching. So you're out in the gen ed classrooms with some of the kids that you have in intervention and in your special ed support. What do you notice the difference between classrooms that fully utilize some of the same strategies you're using in intervention versus those classrooms that maybe aren't yet using as many active participation strategies?
Yeah, when our teachers in our building have had years of training and being immersed and the expectation that they're using the active participation strategies, and the ones that do it makes my job easy, but more importantly, the kids are really able to engage in those classrooms. They feel comfortable participating because they know the strategy that's being used, and they now just have to apply or read or use whatever new information is there because those strategies are already in place. And I see confidence, and I see them being able to really generalize what they've learned in an intervention class and see it in a bigger, broader picture in the gen ed class. And it really is beautiful to see them feel comfortable in that setting.
Is there some intentionality in terms of making sure that there's alignment between what's going on in the gen ed classroom and in your classroom? I'm thinking you maybe even from your role on the administrative team or the leadership team for this.
Yeah, well, I am able to work and co-teach with these different teachers and be on different teams with them. And we've all heard the same strategy used. We have staff meetings where teachers will share some of the strategies, what's working well. And department meetings, teachers are hearing it and there's sort of a check-in every couple weeks or every month. Okay, what strategy are you using? How are you using it? And certainly the administrators are kind of checking in on that. So I don't, but I really collaboratively work with the teachers that I co-teach with. And one of the English teachers is also a reading intervention teacher. And so we talk all the time about what's working, what's not. When I'm co-teaching in her room, I might be up at the board, and because those routines are in place, it doesn't matter if she's leading or I'm leading, we're still chorally reading or filling in my blank or, okay, turn to your partner. And all of those pieces are just really fluid because that's the norm in the building. And the culture has really been established by our administration that this is the expectation. It's not something that's fleeting. It's not going to pass. This works. Research shows it works. It engages kids. And again, it's just the norm, and it's what we do.
Yeah, cool. What do you notice about the impact of the use of active participation strategies, both in your setting and in the gen ed settings, in terms of classroom management?
With these strategies in place, behaviors are less because kids know exactly what to expect from us, and they know what we expect of them. And so it really alleviates a lot of the issues that you have. Certainly, we teach middle school. There are going to be things that come up, and you're going to need to, have those one-on-one conversations or follow-ups with kids. But for the most part, when these routines are in place, it really, it takes away that need to stop and then reteach something, or stop and get a behavior in check, because it's the culture that has been established, and it's just what's expected.
One of that's great. And, I've heard that from other people as well. That seems to be just a general finding on that, but it's just so nice to hear that from you as well. Hey, one of the things that's key to doing active participation is providing enough think time. Do you notice that with your kids in terms of being able to give them time to think and process prior to responding, and how that impacts how much they're able to give you back?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times, whether they're reading independently or we just read as a group or they're reading with a partnership, I will ask the question, and then I definitely, I'm a stick puller. I grab a stick. I give them that wait time though to make everybody think about it, or turn and talk to your partner. Come up with 1, 2 answers that you can share, and then I pull that stick. So that they all have to be like, oh man, she might call on me, or oh, I hope it's not my stick, but yet some of them really want it to be their stick. And so I have found that providing that wait time and not just calling on hand raisers really engages everybody. They're sort of forced to engage, and they also learn very quickly that I'm not going to let them just say I don't know. And so either me or a partner will draw them back to where they can find the answer or help them brainstorm something. And even if they still have that I don't know look or I don't know comment, then I will say, okay, I need you to listen very closely to this person. They're going to give the answer, and then I want you to repeat back what they say. And so again, just the intentionality of you're important, you matter, you have a voice, I want to hear you, and you're not getting off the hook.
Yeah.
So they learn that quickly, but I want to hear from them. But giving that wait time is really important, because not everybody is going to process things at the same time. And that's why it's important not to just call on the first one with their hand up every time. That would make class go faster, but I think would be a lot less meaningful.
Yeah, cool. In terms of getting these things started, do you find any initial challenges to implementing active participation strategies, and how do you overcome that?
Not so much challenges as just the time that it takes to really lay that foundation. Just like anything in a beginning of the year classroom, you need to have those routines. You need to establish them. You might have to explain them, and it's going to be a lot of practice, but then it's routine, routine, routine. And so those being established early on are really going to just make the rest of the year go much smoother. And so I find that introducing the types of active engagement strategies are really important, even though the kids probably heard them last year or hopefully did. But let's go over them again. I'm going to introduce you to my signal that I use, so that when I say you fill in my blank, you know when to do it. When I say let's read together, you know when to do it. And so it's just that practice of laying the foundation of routines. And then it really, September, even early October, you're good for the rest of the year, because that's what you do in the room.
Yeah, cool. What advice would you give to either new teachers or teachers that maybe haven't used active participation strategies much and are looking to do so?
These work, so don't be afraid to ask about them. Don't be afraid to take that 10th, 20th, 30th copy of those active engagement strategies when you get them in a training, and use them and put them in a prominent place. But I'm sure that I know in our building, when new teachers come in, we have teachers that have done these strategies for years now. And, giving them the chance to see a teacher in action is important. But these are the pieces that are going to make the flow of your classroom just so much easier. It puts you in a better place to present new information, but it also kind of eases the kids, just where they are in class, because they know what's going to happen. They know what you expect, and now they're available to learn new information. So feel free to ask questions, seek out active engagement strategies, and give it that time. It's not going to be one day you introduce it and then kids all have it the next day. So, for a week, for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, whatever it takes, stick with it, stay with the routine. Your kids will get there.
Yeah. And I can imagine at middle school, you probably have kids that come in once in a while and say, okay, I don't want to do this today, but how do you overcome that one?
A lot of times I do use humor. We're in middle school, so I'm using some humor, but also reaching out, privately, whether usually during, if I can, or if I know somebody's coming in and they have just fallen apart, I will reach out to them afterwards. And once a year if they need a pass, I guess, but on a consistent basis, if you have kids coming in and refusing to do that, I do spend a lot of one-on-one time with them. And I just continue to let them know you're important, build that relationship. You have a voice. I want to hear that voice, and so does the class. And so, to me, it's non-negotiable that you participate in class because you're too important to me. And so I just make sure that they know that. I mean, sure, you're going to have your moments where kids are, something major has happened in their life and they've fallen apart. But our job is to pick them back up and help them. And through the use of these consistent strategies, they know what's expected. And so some of my kids have come in some pretty foul moods, but they know what's expected and they know what we're going to do here, and they're able to do it. And it almost sort of eases some of whatever tension or anxiety they have elsewhere because these things have been established and we just do them every day.
Yeah, cool. Hey, would you go back to your previous way of teaching now that you've been doing this for a number of years?
Heck no. I mean, I've been teaching for 20 years now, which I know I look too young for that, but I wouldn't. I feel like the past 4 years of professional development and coaching that I've received, I feel like I could do this for another 20 or 30 years. I feel like a spring chicken, but I feel like I'm helping kids more. I feel like I have the right, valid, research-based strategies in place. Kids are engaging. And I've learned more things during the past 4 years than I've learned, in the 20 years that I've taught.
Wow, that's really powerful. Thanks. Hey, anything else that you, for the good of the order or for others that might be watching and listening?
You know what? Just, you got this. Reach out. Don't, you're not supposed to have all the answers. So reach out to people that have these strategies solid, or you got this. The students are worth it.
Cool. Well, thanks again so much for your time, Kate, and for your
Yeah.
experiences and for your passion for your kids. It's wonderful to see. So
Yeah. Thank
have a
you.
great
All
day.
right. You too. Thanks.